Yeah, let's take a look at the next part of Project 2. If we open up, content, go to Project 2, and we'll come down to finding financial information. And I've already downloaded that, but you guys may want to. And some things that you're going to want to do. You know how to find the stock quotes. That was a part of your first assignment. Let's start digging for more financial information. It's going to be useful. We want to do this, of course, if we're interested in purchasing a stock, which is something you guys ought to consider as you move on in life. Okay. Ultimately, your assignment for this project is going to be to write an analysis of the company you've chosen. I hope that some of these early things will help get you there and help you to see some of the things that are of interest and that you should write about. So this week, I got report the sales trend for the past 3 years. And I got a couple other things. I don't want to. No, that's fine. We'll go there. So, where's a good place to look? And I like this particular site. Morningstar also works good, but FINRA seems to have a little bit more detailed information. So if I go to FINRA, you got to click through a few things. For that, I apologize. So you click on the FINRA, you come to Investors, and where it says Tools and Calculators, click on that. And then it says FINRA Market Data, click on that. And then over here, what we're interested in is the equities. We're not interested in the options, but we're interested in the equities. And so we click on the one that says Equities and Options. And that takes us here. Okay. Now I'm going to enter in, you would enter in the symbol, the ticker symbol that you found in the first assignment for your particular company. And I'm going to enter in one that I don't think anybody chose, one that I kind of follow a little bit, kind of like, is Columbia Sportswear. Kind of like them because they're a little bit under the radar. So I enter that and I just click go. And there we have it. Okay, lots of information here. It's interesting. We're going to need a little bit more of the detailed information. So let's go back. What's it ask for? It says report the sales trend for the past 3 years. Calculate the annual growth. Okay. Well, I'm not going to find that right here on this main page. Yeah, great. But if I come here to where it says financials, take me here, and actually this gives me the last 3 years. Okay, I can get a little more detailed if I come up here to the income statement, and we're going to look at that. But I can do it from here. I got $2,377,000,000 up to 2.802. Okay, and when I say that I want you, and I've already entered the data, but 2.37, right, what I got from, oops, move that over so you guys, the data that I got from here, I entered that. And when I say I want you to calculate the annual growth rate, it's something that we've worked on in other chapters. And so this was the first year, and this was the last year, the sales amount. And I got 3 years, so I've got three variables I can calculate. A fourth number of periods, right? It's 3. Present value, and I want to enter that as a negative number. So we learn, and then I got a future value. So my annual growth rate, and I always like to get out a couple decimals, is 5.64%. That's what I would enter. Report the earnings per share trend for the past 3 years and calculate the annual growth. This one's really going to be a nice demonstration of why we like to maybe throw out a year, look at longer trends than just 1 or 2 years or from one year to another. So now I do need to come up here and click on the income statement because I don't have the earnings per share there. But if I come down here, and then the prior page, everything was going that direction, and now it's going that direction. In any event, I come down to the earnings per share, and I can see this is trailing 12 months, and it actually is the same as what their last quarter report was, but sometimes that'll be different. So 2018-12, so they're on a calendar year. Not all companies are going to be on a calendar year, but they are. And I come down, and their earnings were $275, $151, and $385 per share. Again, I'm interested in just the growth rate really from this year to this year. So I've got it 3 years ago, this past 3-year period of time. Actually I can just go copy and paste. Look at that, my earnings growth was 11.87. Yeah, that's just some good things. Now, one thing I do want to point out, though, is look at that. So what happened that year? If you had a nice trend going, you'd say, gosh, that should be about 3.25 or something like that. But I don't have a nice trend going. These are the types of things when you're doing your work and you're going to be analyzing your company. Boy, I got an aberration there. That's something that I definitely am going to want to include in my report. I got to figure out what caused that aberration, okay? And I've kind of taken a look at it here. I got a rough idea maybe what happened, okay? And here, I'll give you guys a hint in this case. Look at that provision for income tax. I went from 58 up to 154 and then back to 86. Boy, do you think that might have had something to do with it? It did, and it had to do with the tax change. I'd have to dig into it. I don't know exactly what it was, but I'm sure it had to do with the tax change law and probably front loading, maybe some different things. And they may have repatriated some money. I won't get into those kinds of details. We will maybe as we go along further. But I would make a note of that if you have a similar thing on and it may not be taxes, it may be something else, but if you have a similar change that's dramatic in your company, make a note of that, because that's something that you're definitely going to come back to and report on when we get to the end. So better jump down, keep going, move on so I don't use up my 15 minutes, but report the most recent ROE. ROE, return on equity, right? Look at that. Do you think that's a ratio? Of course it is. So let's click on key ratios. Let this come up. Financials there, but the ratios themselves are kind of down here. You got them under different things. ROE, I'm looking for return on equity. The most recent, and in this case, you could put TTM, or in this case it's the same. Again, your company may be different. Not all companies have a calendar year, corporate year. Some companies, their corporate year might end in May or June or October. It really varies, so you got to kind of watch that. That's what the 12 means, is that they are in a calendar year. If yours had a October year end, then that would say 10. Okay, so our return on equity, then my most recent, 16.28%. And again, look at that. We had that weird one there, because they were 13, 7, and then jump up to 16. Something happened in that year. It was that tax-related deal, but something I'm definitely going to want to report on. Report the most recent ROA, return on assets. Okay, it's ROA. Again, you see that same pattern, but 11.71 in this case would be my most recent ROA. If this differs, if you're worried about reporting the correct one, just identify it. If you use the trailing 12 months, just put 11.71 trailing 12 months. Okay. If it happens to differ, if your calendar year and corporate year are a little bit different, you use this one. You can just say year end or something like that. What has been the gross profit trend for the last 5 years? This one, oops, I didn't mean to call that up. This one can get to be a little bit interesting. If we come up here, gross profit is actually a dollar figure. And I probably should have said the gross margin. I'm really actually more interested in the margin than I am in the profit. If you report either one, I'll be happy, but I'm really more interested in the gross margin. Because gross margins are just a huge thing. If you can expand those gross margins by a few percent, man, it's really meaningful. For these companies that have, in this case, close to $3 billion in sales, right? 3% makes a big difference. 30, what the heck would that be? $90 million. And look at their gross margin here, went from 46 up to 49.5. That's pretty darn good. Again, we're talking about a little over 3% there. So that's a big change. That's something. Make a note. Okay, if that's your company, if your company's doing that, or maybe it's going the other direction, okay, make a note. That's something that's going to be that you're going to want to report on. That's just a huge factor towards increasing. Remember, we saw down here, return on equity making a big jump from 13 to 16. Return on assets making a jump from 10 to almost 12. Those things are huge. This is probably a big part of it for this company. What has been the operating expense trend? So the opposite side of that is, how are my operating expenses or operating margin been? Now in this case, this has been detracting a little bit, right? Because it's gone from 11 to 12 and a half. So it's not growing as fast as my gross margin's growing, so that's a plus, okay? But my operating margin is still, in this case, we'd like to see this number get smaller. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to go back. I want to look at operating expenses, and I don't have operating expenses here. This is my operating margin, and I do want it to get bigger. Okay, I've got to go back and I don't have operating expenses here, so I'm going to go back to the financials, go to the income statement, which I am, and here's the operating expenses. This is really what I want you to take a look at. If I look at the total, they're increasing, right? But their sales are increasing, so I would expect my expenses to increase. But what about as a percentage? They've gone up, right? The last 5 years. They've gone from 36 to almost 37. So it's increased by 1%. Now, their gross profit's increasing faster, and so that's a good sign. That's why my operating income down here has gone from 9.5 to 12.5, right? It's increased at a pretty good clip. I mean, that's good. You're going to find out that most of your companies, their operating income, the percentage here is going to maybe stay the same. A lot of them are lucky. Did you see how I toggled this up here? I can go from dollars to percent when I'm on that. And I love that. I love to be able to check that out. Dollars are one thing, but if my revenue is going up, I'd expect my cost of revenue to go up, and I'd expect my gross profit to go up. And if I'm just glancing at these numbers, I don't really have an indication if the management's doing a good job or not. When I click to percentage, I can go, oh wow, look at that. They've gone from 45.5 to almost 49.5. Really, that's about a 4% increase in gross profit during that period of time. Okay, they're either getting a little more money for their products, or they're able to cut the inputs, the input cost of those products. Next, how's the company's long-term debt increased or decreased over the last 5 years? Yeah, let's take a quick look there. I'm gonna have to go to the balance sheet for that. So I click on balance sheet, come down, got assets, total liabilities, long-term debt. Look at that. It's gone from 16 down to nothing. Okay, they do have some other long-term liabilities, and you could certainly report. I asked for long-term debts. You could report that that's decreased. The other long-term liabilities, some of those have increased though. What those are, I don't know. I'd have to get into their annual reports probably to see what's going on with their other long-term liabilities. That I don't know. You could report either this long-term debt figure. You could also use the total non-current liabilities. This may be a more accurate reflection of what's going on with their debt, is the other total non-current liabilities. I want to get done here in my 15 minutes, so I'm going to kind of rush through, but that's the debt. Let's see. Examine the company's most recent annual report. So where am I going to find the annual report? I've already got theirs up, but I want to just, oftentimes it's just as easy to come to Google or Bing and say, Columbia Sportswear annual report. A lot of times this one pops up, this www.annualreports.com, and then I haven't found that to be an easy way to find a company's annual report. Instead, here I got investor.columbia.com financials. I click on that. It brings me to here, shareholder information. The annual report is right there. By their year ended 2018 at the end of the year. That annual report's not complete yet. Okay, so the only one I'm going to find, the most recent one, is going to be the 2017. I could get the fourth quarter results for 2018, so I could get a pretty good idea what's been going on. I think I'm about to run out of time here.